What if I told you that the very weakness you feel ashamed of, the moments when you crumble under pressure, the times when your emotions control you instead of the other way around, are actually doorways to unprecedented inner strength? Most people don't realize that every single moment of perceived weakness is actually your psyche begging you to develop the muscles you never knew you had. Right now, as you're watching this, there are ancient principles, discovered over 2,000 years ago, that can transform your relationship with adversity forever. Think about it. How many times this week have you felt overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control? How often have you found yourself scrolling through social media, comparing your inner struggles to everyone else's highlight reel, feeling smaller and weaker with each swipe? How many moments have you experienced where you knew what you should do, but you did the opposite anyway, then spent hours afterward drowning in regret and self-criticism? This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to change it. We live in an era that has made weakness comfortable and strength uncomfortable. Society tells us that our feelings should dictate our actions, that comfort is the goal, that avoiding pain is wisdom. But what if everything you've been taught about handling life's challenges is not just wrong, but actively making you weaker? What if the very strategies you're using to cope are actually coping mechanisms that keep you trapped in cycles of reactivity, victimhood, and emotional turbulence? The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is just beginning to rediscover. They knew that true strength isn't about never feeling weak. It's about transforming your relationship with weakness itself. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire in history while dealing with plagues, wars, and personal tragedies, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing for public consumption. He was reminding himself, in his most vulnerable moments, of principles that could carry him through anything. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of history's greatest teachers, discovered that external circumstances have no inherent power over your internal state. He taught that the moment you understand the difference between what you can control and what you cannot, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the architect of your character. Seneca, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in Rome, voluntarily practiced poverty and discomfort to ensure that his strength came from within, not from his external advantages. These weren't just philosophical theories. These were battle-tested principles forged in the crucible of real human suffering, real human challenges, real human weakness transformed into unshakable strength. If you're serious about breaking free from the patterns that keep you stuck, if you're tired of feeling like life happens to you instead of through you, if you recognize that the strength you're looking for can't be found in comfort zones or positive thinking alone, then like this video right now. Don't skip any part of what I'm about to share, because each rule builds on the last, and missing even one could mean the difference between breakthrough and staying exactly where you are. Drop a comment when you recognize the moment in your life where you chose comfort over growth, and share this with someone who you know is ready to stop making excuses and start building real inner strength. The first rule that will begin your transformation is this: accept what you cannot control, control what you can. This sounds simple, but most people spend their entire lives fighting this fundamental truth. Right now, you're expending precious mental and emotional energy trying to control things that are completely outside your influence. You're worried about what other people think about you, but you can't control their thoughts. You're stressed about economic uncertainty, but you can't control global markets. You're anxious about your health, but you can't control every variable that affects your body. Here's what happens when you truly internalize this rule. Last week, you might have spent 3 hours worrying about a conversation with your boss that might happen next month. That's 3 hours of your life force drained by something that exists only in your imagination, about a person whose thoughts and reactions you cannot control. The Stoic approach would be to spend 30 seconds acknowledging the upcoming conversation, 5 minutes preparing what you can control, your words, your attitude, your preparation, and then directing your attention to what's actually in front of you right now. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, betrayal, and the constant pressure of governing an empire, yet he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that strength comes not from trying to control the uncontrollable, but from applying your full power to what actually lies within your domain: your thoughts, your actions, your responses, your character development, your daily habits, your moment-to-moment choices. When you stop trying to control other people's opinions and start controlling your own standards, something extraordinary happens. When you stop trying to control outcomes and start controlling your effort and preparation, you discover a reservoir of power you never knew existed. When you stop trying to control external circumstances and start controlling your internal responses, you become essentially unbreakable. The practical application starts today. Every time you catch yourself worrying about something, ask yourself this question: is this within my control or outside my control? If it's outside your control, you have exactly two productive options. Either take whatever small action you can take to influence the situation, or completely redirect your attention to something you can actually control. Everything else is weakness disguised as concern. The second rule will revolutionize how you handle adversity. Reframe every obstacle as training. Most people see challenges as evidence that life is unfair, that they're unlucky, that the universe is against them. This victim mentality keeps them weak because it positions them as passive recipients of circumstances rather than active agents of their own development. The Stoics understood that every obstacle contains within it the seeds of equivalent or greater strength. Epictetus taught his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." He knew that intellectual understanding without practical application is worthless, but more importantly, he knew that every difficulty you face is actually customized training for the exact type of strength you need to develop. Think about this. The specific challenges you're dealing with right now, the ones that feel so overwhelming and personal, are actually perfectly designed to build the muscles you need for your next level of development. That financial pressure you're experiencing isn't just bad luck. It's training for resourcefulness, creativity, and detachment from material security. That difficult relationship isn't just drama. It's training for boundaries, communication, and emotional regulation. That health challenge isn't just inconvenience. It's training for discipline, priorities, and appreciation for what you can control. That professional setback isn't just disappointment. It's training for resilience, adaptability, and finding your true source of confidence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't positive thinking or wishful thinking. This is recognition that obstacles aren't interruptions to your path. They are your path. Every time you successfully navigate a challenge, you're not just solving a problem, you're building the internal infrastructure to handle bigger challenges with more grace and strength. Here's how this transforms your daily experience. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "How is this happening for me?" Instead of, "This shouldn't be this difficult," you think, "This difficulty is precisely what I need to become stronger." Instead of avoiding discomfort, you begin to recognize discomfort as information about where your growth edges lie. The practical implementation is immediate and ongoing. Start viewing every frustration as a training session for patience, every rejection as training for persistence, every criticism as training for emotional regulation, every setback as training for resilience, every fear as training for courage. This isn't about pretending challenges aren't difficult. It's about extracting maximum growth from every difficulty instead of maximum suffering. The third rule will change how you relate to your emotions. Feel without being controlled by feelings. This might be the most misunderstood aspect of Stoic philosophy. Many people think Stoics advocate for emotional suppression or becoming robotic. The truth is the opposite. Stoics feel their emotions fully, but they don't let emotions make their decisions. They understand that emotions are information, not instructions. Most people live in emotional reactivity. Something happens, they feel something, and they immediately act on that feeling without any space between stimulus and response. Someone cuts them off in traffic. They feel anger. They honk and curse and let that anger dictate their next 10 minutes. They get criticized at work. They feel hurt. They spend their evening replaying the interaction and feeling sorry for themselves. They see other people's success. They feel inadequate. They either give up on their own goals or attack the successful person. Seneca understood this pattern and taught a different approach. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Notice that he didn't say you have power over your emotions. He said you have power over your mind. Emotions arise automatically based on your interpretations and past conditioning, but you can choose what you do with those emotions once they arise. Here's what emotional strength actually looks like. You feel fear, but you act courageously anyway. You feel anger, but you respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. You feel sadness, but you don't wallow or make decisions from that sadness. You feel excitement, but you don't abandon your long-term plans for short-term pleasure. You feel all of it, but you act from your principles rather than your impulses. The practical application requires daily practice. When you notice an emotion arising, especially a strong one, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Name the emotion. I notice I'm feeling frustrated right now. Then ask yourself, what would acting from my principles look like in this situation, regardless of what I'm feeling? Then act from that answer, not from the emotion. This doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. It means creating space between feeling and action so that you can choose your response based on wisdom rather than impulse. Over time, this practice develops what the Stoics called emotional resilience, the ability to feel whatever arises without being knocked off center by it. The 4th rule builds unshakable confidence. Define success by internal standards, not external validation. Most people's sense of worth fluctuates based on external circumstances. They feel good about themselves when other people approve of them, when they're making money, when things are going smoothly. They feel bad about themselves when they're criticized, when they face financial pressure, when obstacles arise. This external locus of control keeps them perpetually unstable and ultimately weak. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the world, derived his sense of worth not from his position or wealth, but from his adherence to his principles. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." He understood that true strength comes from internal validation based on whether you're living according to your values, not external validation based on other people's reactions. Think about how this plays out in your life. You post something on social media and then check obsessively to see how many likes and comments it gets, allowing other people's responses to determine how you feel about yourself. You make a decision and then second-guess yourself based on other people's opinions, even when you know those people don't understand your full situation or your long-term goals. You measure your worth by your bank account, your relationship status, your professional title, or other people's perception of your success. The Stoic approach is radically different. You define success as living according to your principles regardless of outcomes. You measure progress by your effort and character development, not by external results. You derive confidence from your commitment to growth and virtue, not from other people's approval or material achievements. Epictetus, who owned literally nothing, possessed unshakable confidence because his sense of worth came from his wisdom, his teaching, his commitment to helping others develop inner strength. No one could take that away from him because it existed independently of external circumstances. Here's how you implement this immediately. Create a list of your core values and principles. Every evening, review your day and evaluate yourself based on how well you lived according to those principles. Did you act courageously when you felt afraid? Did you speak truthfully when lying would have been easier? Did you work diligently even when you didn't feel motivated? Did you treat people with respect even when they were difficult? Your sense of self-worth should be based on your honest answers to these questions, not on other people's reactions to your choices. The 5th rule develops mental toughness. Practice voluntary discomfort. This is perhaps the most practical and immediately applicable of all Stoic practices. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort, but this avoidance actually makes them weaker. Every time you choose comfort when you could choose challenge, you're training yourself to be controlled by your preferences rather than your principles. The Stoics deliberately exposed themselves to discomfort in small, controlled ways so they wouldn't be overwhelmed when involuntary discomfort arose. Seneca, despite being wealthy, would periodically eat simple food, wear basic clothing, and sleep on the floor. He wasn't punishing himself. He was training himself to be independent of luxury and comfort. He was proving to himself that he could be happy regardless of external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius would wake up before dawn, even when he didn't want to, because he knew that self-discipline in small things builds the strength to handle discipline in big things. He would exercise in harsh weather, not because he enjoyed it, but because he was training his mind to do what needed to be done regardless of his preferences. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics understood intuitively. Voluntary exposure to manageable stress actually rewires your brain to handle involuntary stress more effectively. When you choose discomfort, you're literally building neural pathways that increase your resilience, confidence, and emotional regulation. Here's how you start today. Take cold showers. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than you want to. Exercise when you don't feel like it. Have difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. Eat healthy food instead of comfort food. Put your phone away during designated times. Do the most important task first instead of procrastinating. Each small act of voluntary discomfort builds your internal strength and proves to yourself that you can handle whatever life presents. The key is to start small and be consistent. Don't try to transform your entire life overnight. Choose one area of voluntary discomfort and practice it daily for 30 days. Then add another area. Over time, you'll develop what the Stoics called a disciplined will, the ability to choose your actions based on what's best for you long-term rather than what feels good in the moment. The sixth rule creates emotional freedom. Accept impermanence and practice negative visualization. Most human suffering comes from attachment to things staying the same. We get comfortable in relationships, careers, health, financial situations, and then suffer when those things inevitably change. The Stoics understood that everything in life is temporary, and that accepting this truth actually increases your appreciation for what you have, while decreasing your suffering when it changes. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself that everything he loved would eventually be gone. This wasn't morbid thinking. It was practical wisdom that allowed him to appreciate his relationships, his health, his position, and his possessions without becoming so attached to them that their loss would destroy his peace of mind. He wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." Negative visualization is a specific practice where you imagine losing something important to you, not to create anxiety, but to increase gratitude and reduce attachment. Seneca would imagine losing his wealth, his friends, his health, his reputation. He would think through how he would handle these losses and what he would still have even if they occurred. This practice made him appreciate what he had while building confidence that he could handle any loss. Most people avoid thinking about potential losses because they believe this will make them unhappy. The opposite is true. When you regularly contemplate impermanence, you become more grateful for what you have now and more confident in your ability to handle whatever comes next. You stop taking your blessings for granted, and you stop living in fear of losing them. Think about your current situation, your health, your relationships, your career, your living situation. Now imagine that one of these changed dramatically. How would you handle it? What would you still have? What would you learn? How might you even grow stronger? This isn't pessimistic thinking. It's preparation that builds both gratitude and resilience. The practical application involves daily reflection. Spend 5 minutes each morning imagining what your life would be like if you lost something you currently take for granted. Then spend the rest of the day appreciating that thing more deeply. This practice gradually reduces your attachment to outcomes while increasing your appreciation for the present moment. The seventh and final rule synthesizes everything. Live according to nature, not according to society's expectations. The Stoics believed that human nature is fundamentally rational and social. We're designed to think clearly, act virtuously, and contribute to the common good. But society often pressures us to act against our nature, to pursue things that don't actually fulfill us, to adopt values that make us weaker rather than stronger. Epictetus taught that most people are unhappy because they're trying to live according to other people's expectations rather than according to their own nature. They choose careers that look impressive but don't align with their values. They pursue relationships that meet social standards but don't fulfill them personally. They adopt lifestyle habits that appear successful but actually undermine their health and happiness. Living according to nature means developing your capacity for reason, virtue, and contribution regardless of whether these choices make you popular or wealthy or comfortable. It means choosing courage over safety, truth over convenience, growth over comfort, service over selfishness. It means becoming the person you were designed to be rather than the person society tells you to be. Marcus Aurelius had every opportunity to live for pleasure, power, and personal gain. Instead, he chose to dedicate his life to serving the empire and developing his character. He understood that fulfillment comes not from getting what you want, but from wanting what you already have and becoming who you're capable of becoming. Here's how you implement this final rule. Regularly ask yourself, am I making this choice because it aligns with my authentic nature and values, or because it meets other people's expectations? Am I choosing this career path because it genuinely excites and fulfills me, or because it will impress others? Am I staying in this relationship because it brings out the best in both of us, or because breaking up would be socially awkward? Am I adopting these habits because they make me stronger and happier, or because they make me appear successful? The courage to live authentically, according to your nature rather than society's expectations, is the ultimate expression of inner strength. It requires all the other rules working together, accepting what you cannot control, reframing obstacles as training, managing emotions without being controlled by them, deriving confidence from internal standards, practicing voluntary discomfort, and accepting impermanence. These 7 rules work together to create what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, the discipline of action, and the discipline of assent. You learn to want what you have rather than having what you want. You learn to act according to virtue rather than impulse. You learn to think clearly rather than reactively. Together, these disciplines transform weakness into strength, reactivity into responsibility, and victimhood into empowerment. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens immediately. The moment you start applying these principles, you begin to experience more inner peace, more genuine confidence, and more authentic power. You stop being controlled by circumstances and start being guided by principles. You stop being weakened by challenges and start being strengthened by them. Remember, every single day presents you with opportunities to practice these rules. Every moment of frustration is a chance to practice accepting what you cannot control. Every obstacle is a chance to practice reframing challenges as training. Every strong emotion is a chance to practice feeling without being controlled. Every social pressure is a chance to practice living according to your nature rather than others' expectations. If this message resonated with you, if something inside you lit up when you heard these principles, if you recognize that the strength you've been looking for can only come from within, then like this video right now and comment below with the rule that spoke to you most powerfully. Share this with someone who you know is ready to stop making excuses and start building real inner strength. Subscribe to join our community of people who are committed to developing unshakable character and authentic power. Remember, weakness is not your enemy. Weakness is your teacher, and strength is your choice. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges. The question is whether you'll use those challenges to become stronger or allow them to make you weaker. The Stoics chose strength, and so can you.